Alright, so this is going to be my second speech for the informative speech, and I'm deciding to go over Legally Blonde, which is my favorite film. Alright. You got the timer ready?
Sure.
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
Hi there, my name's Arabella Morales, and that's Arabella Colin Morales, and I go here as in my kitchen to give you guys a speech over Legally Blonde, which is one of my favorite films. Legally Blonde is one of my favorite films because it has so much meaning to it, and it's also something I'm credible in because I do enjoy speaking about the movie, and I've also watched it countless of times. So Legally Blonde, it follows in the character perspective of Elle Woods, where she goes to follow her ex-boyfriend to Harvard to try to win him back, but she finds out that he's engaged to another woman, and that follows with that and takes the film primarily, and she also scores an intern with one of her professors. So today we're going to be talking about a poor portrayal of women in common media, as well as Elle Woods' own adversities, while also discussing what it means to overcome stereotypes. So common distasteful portrayals for women in media would be, think of female superheroes, for example. Think of characters like Wonder Woman or Black Widow, or even Captain Marvel, who all stand for really good things, but they're all extremely overtly sexualized when they honestly don't need to be, or some of them even take on very masculine traits, which ultimately don't do anything to pull the story across, and it may try to prove a point, but all it does is fall flat, which ultimately creates a narrative that having more feminine characteristics is negative and it's wrong, or it's deceitful, or whatever else, just for being a girl, which isn't necessarily true, and that's ultimately what Legally Blonde sets out to disprove. So Elle Woods' own adversity is she's perceived as very ditzy because of her blonde hair, which honestly isn't true because she's shown to be very smart, as she has a 4.0 GPA at a public Ivy League school, which is UCLA if you're curious. So Elle Woods gets rejected by just about anyone and everyone in the beginning of the film, including her own father, who tells her that she's not going to be able to make it at Harvard University because she's not smart enough, which ultimately isn't true, and everyone is even telling her she needs to be a model instead because of how she looks, which Elle Woods ultimately decides to go against. So her girly traits are also used against her, and she creates a lot of judgment. Even when she's at Harvard, she's getting accused of starting rumors and saying all these slurs, which just isn't true for the character, and it's just all these nasty rumors that start up just because of how she looks, and it's not ultimately anything she did. And stereotypes, they also do play a very prominent role, and there's two characters who have their own little mini arcs, which I want to talk about. We're going to talk about a professor that's also kind of Elle's mentor in a little bit of a way. She does play a more minor role though, but the professor maintains her gruff, no-nonsense demeanor, perhaps demonstrating the need for a woman in the field of law to present an image that is in line with characteristics of masculinity. And that's from Dogas and Hinger and Race, Gender, Research, and Implications for Leading Deceptions of Professors in Popular Film. This character, she does play a more minor role, as I said, but this character still is important because she's overcoming stereotypes, as she is a woman in a very male-dominated field. And this character is good because although she has more masculine traits, she's showing that you don't need to be extremely masculine in order to be successful as a woman in a male-dominated field. So that's really important to me. And then I also want to talk about Brooke Wyndham, who the climax of the plot's really centers around. So Brooke Wyndham, she's also blonde. She's a little bit older than Elle Woods, and she has her own fitness empire, but she gets accused of murdering her husband. And she's also, just because she's blonde, she gets accused of being a gold digger and all this nasty stuff. She's mainly portrayed as deceitful, and her own lawyers don't even believe she's innocent, which is honestly heartbreaking. The only lawyer who believed in Brooke's case was definitely Elle Woods, and Elle Woods was ultimately able to prove her as innocent. Quote, the defense attorney in Legally Blonde fails to understand the implications a comment about Prada shoes, the way adults in feels about a man who wears a thong, and rules about perm maintenance. And that's from March, and Dead Husbands and Other Girls Stuff, and The Truffles in Legally Blonde. Now, I'm sure that sounds pretty crazy with all those words I just said, but please watch the film because it explains it a little bit more, and there's a lot of twists and turns throughout the whole case. But that is ultimately important because Elle Woods is able to prove her client is innocent, which also is able to give her credibility as a lawyer. Giving herself credibility as a lawyer is important in the film as it establishes her as a force that shouldn't be reckoned with. And then Elle Woods throughout the film was able to overcome poor portrayals of women in media, as well as her own adversities, as well as overcome stereotypes, and all the other female characters did that as well. In the end, Elle chooses to choose herself over Warner, deciding that she doesn't need her ex-boyfriend, who's ultimately not that good of a guy for her, and she decides she wants to own her own law firm one day instead of just being someone's wife. Although we may not drive Porsches like Elle Woods, we can still learn a thing or two about her from her hard work ethic. Thank you.
That's pretty good.